Light heavyweight banger. Coming up this weekend, we have the Hanyak, Dustin Jacoby taking on Hussar, Michal Oleksiejczuk. And it's kind of funny because with Fight Night picks, Oleksiejczuk definitely a staple in his young UFC career. And the craziest part about it is we'll get into our videos, and instead of saying Oleksiejczuk a dozen times, we'll start throwing in Lord. But we can't call him Lord anymore because his last fight out against Nurmagomedov, he decided that a nickname switch was in order. So he went with Hussar. And then, as Craig Allen with Fight Night Picks, you got to kind of Google, well, what the heck is a Hussar? A Hussar was heavy cavalry in Poland from 1503 to 1702.
They had wings on their back.
That is the nickname that Michal Oleksiejczuk has gone with. And Hussar was able to put the throwdown to Nurmagomedov, took the O from the Russian fighter, and in that one, at about the 3-minute mark, Gamzatov hands down by his side. Heavy breathing. Lots of great jabs with that lead hand frame from Michal Oleksiejczuk, and lots of great hooks to the body as well with that lead hand. So you absolutely love what you saw out of Oleksiejczuk his last time out. But when I focus on this fight, you take these two guys, you throw them in a blender, you get 18 first-round finishes, and they are finishers to the highest degree. If you look at it for Dustin Jacoby, yes, he has all that glory experience. This guy hasn't lost an MMA fight since 2015 against former Bellator middleweight title challenger John Salter. Oh yeah, and the loss before that from 2014, King Mo Lawal, where he was a plus 420 underdog in that fight. Since he's had the extended glory experience, 6-0-1. He's looked amazing in the return to the UFC. And for Dustin Jacoby, has he had a few close calls in some of these fights? Yes. I mean, the Max Grecian fight for sure. And the Ion Kutsalaba fight, whether you consider that a draw or as it is, on his record. But when you do look at this fight overall, these two guys strike. Who's going to win out in terms of striking? Because I think this is an awesome matchup on paper.
I really do too. And this is a weird fight because this should be a ranked fight, let's be honest. These are two unranked guys, but I think they are like number 16 and 17 in the division. They are right on the borderline. And this fight, oddly enough, does have maybe not title implications, but I do think it has big implications for the division because at 205, it's wide open right now. Like, I know you rag on the middleweight division quite a bit for how weak it is, but let's be honest, light heavyweight isn't that great either. So I do think that this fight is one that could be a really big opportunity for both guys. For Oleksiejczuk, it'll be really interesting to see if he's the one moving forward in this fight or if he's the one moving backwards, because Jacoby's interesting. He's such a good Muay Thai striker, but he can get backed up to the cage every now and then. And with his very upright style, I do worry about him potentially eating a really big shot from someone like Oleksiejczuk, who is really good at going to the body and going to the head. But the weird thing about the artist formerly known as Lord Michael is that he doesn't throw nearly enough volume. Like, you look at his strikes, and I kind of want to throw him into that Jairzinho Rosenstrike category to where when he does throw, it's like, wow, there's not many people who can stand up against your power. But then he'll go 1, 2, sometimes 3 minutes in his fight where it's like, okay, you've thrown a couple jabs, you've missed a couple right hands. He just doesn't have any of those sort of pitter-patter techniques on the in-betweens. He's not a very good leg kicker. He's not really much of a kicker, if we're being honest, to the body or to the head. And that's what I do worry about with him against Jacoby, who, again, Jacoby, we talk about his Muay Thai quite a bit. He's not really a kicker who goes to the head a lot. Uses a lot of leg kicks, some body kicks. So it'll be really interesting to see what Oleksiejczuk can do at the long range in this fight, in between his flurries with his boxing.
Red Rover, send leg kick Craig over. So that was one of those things that when I was doing my tape study and when I was going back, and you definitely shouldn't use stats to try and score fights, but you can definitely go back and look at the stats to tell a story about those fights. So for Michal Oleksiejczuk, through his UFC fights, he's had 7 of them. He's come out on the winning end of the majority of them. He's 4-2 with a no contest. That no contest, he tested positive for clomiphene. He had a 1-year USADA suspension. So a slap on the wrist. You can't be doing that. Just switch your nickname. Maybe people will forget. But you look at his overall fights. In his first fight, 9% of his strikes were leg kicks. Second fight, 0. Third fight, 0. Fourth fight, 2. And then his last 3 fights, 0%. 1.6% of his overall strikes in his UFC career have been leg kicks, if you add it up that way, just by the averages. And in 5 of his 7 UFC fights, he hasn't even thrown a leg kick. Now, again, he is a finisher, so on and so forth. But I look at Michal Oleksiejczuk as one of those guys. He employs a lot of movement, Some of it's a little wasted, but when he is able to do it quite well, we're switching levels on guys, and that really does throw a wrinkle into their game plan. Do I take this guy down? Am I able to OSP? Am I able to not? Like, it really is tricky when you're facing a southpaw like Oleksiejczuk, who has such good boxing up top, but doesn't tend to use his lower body all that well. And when I went back through and I did a lot of this tape study, the one thing that Oleksiejczuk does with his lower body better than most guys in this light heavyweight division, it's something that a lot of people focus on, especially in the smaller weight classes when you have guys that can pitter patter and move around so well. Lead leg position with Michal Oleksiejczuk, holy smokes, he's always leading the dance when he's winning. When he's not and he gets backed up, I mean, you brought up a good example. When he's backing up and he's not throwing a ton of volume, we can look like a Bukowskis fight. We can look like, one of his losses, pick one of the two in the UFC. But it really is tough sometimes to try and gauge what Oleksiejczuk we're going to get in the octagon.
You got to get over the Bukowskis fight, Craig. I think this could be a really fun fight. I do. Like, this could have been on the Fight of the Night screen. I truly believe that because these are two world-class strikers. And the good thing is, Jacoby and Oleksiejczuk struggle with the exact same type of opponent. When they fight a pressure wrestler who can really get them down to the mat, who can really wear on them, then we normally see the worst version of both guys, which is, oh, I'm very tired. I don't really let my hands go because I'm hesitant about the striking. But the great news is, these guys do complement each other very well with their skill sets. That's why I do think we'll get an incredible fight in this one. I really do think the key to this fight is going to be timing. I know we've talked a lot about the range in this fight, but with Michael, when he gets his timing of his opponent, like you said, when he gets moving downhill, he is tough to deal with, and he can really put his combinations together quite well when he throws in combination. But that's where I see this fight sort of shifting. It's when does Oleksiejczuk get the timing of Jacoby? Because if Jacoby is just able to sit on the outside, throw his leg kicks, followed by his really nice straight punches, I could even see him getting a finish, because if Oleksiejczuk starts rushing his attacks a little bit, jumping into the pocket, that's where he could eat a really big shot for his troubles. So I think Jacoby's the much steadier guy throughout this fight, but I do think if we do see a lot of big moments throughout this fight, let's say a big knockdown early, because here's the thing, Max Grecian's not some big power puncher. A big guy, don't get me wrong, but not necessarily the most heavy-handed striker in the world. He was able to hurt Jacoby a couple times in their fight, so I do think that if Oleksiejczuk's able to land similar shots, he'll definitely be able to put him away.
Max Grecian, change your nickname to Big Thunder. When I do look at this one, there's two more things I want to mention just before we get to the odds. Michal Oleksiejczuk has the number 2 active light heavyweight significant strike defense in the UFC. Now, your number 1 guy is active, but he's not actually a light heavyweight anymore. It's Jared Cannonier at 68.7%. But if you look at it for Michal Oleksiejczuk, 65%, you definitely love to see that. He can really do a great number of defense when he's out there.
He's good at parrying.
Exactly. And when you look at it for Dustin Jacoby, number 1 all time at light heavyweight in terms of significant strikes landed per minute at 6.96. And again, when I look at his leg kicks from 2011 to 2012, and that was his first kind of foray into the UFC, if you will, and 2020 until now, 17.8% of his overall strikes are leg kicks. A big difference maker, especially in the majority of his fights. So when I look at the odds for this one, Jacoby open to minus 160 favored. He's a minus 190 right now. For Hussar, open to plus 140, he's plus 155. The Tapology votes, we get a bit of a sense of what the fans are thinking on this one. They're a surprise to us, they are to you. Jacoby's almost a 2-1 favorite. So I'm going to say, Matt, over under 67.5% Jacoby.
I think it'll be under. I see this much more as a 50-50 fight.
Ooh, look at that. Total votes, 644 of them, 74% going with Jacoby, 75% by decision. For the 26% that have Oleksiejczuk, 41% by decision, 49% by knockout. Matt, I know maybe I've sounded a little down about Oleksiejczuk in the past. I presented him in a very positive light this week. I went back and watched all of the tape that I could watch on Michal Oleksiejczuk to try and give you an unbiased view on him. It's just like you had alluded to at the start of the week and the way that Jacoby's fought. The thing that scares me about old Jacoby is, yes, he's susceptible to getting hit in the first round of his fight. In the first round, Dustin Jacoby, it's like somebody woke him up in the back 5 minutes before he had to make the walk. He walks out to like Metallica. He gets amped up halfway. And then we're at half-mast, and we got to go to full-mast in the second and third.
You ever try to have a nap before you go out partying, and maybe you wake up a little bit too late, and you're still kind of groggy, and you're like, do I really want to leave the house now? That's kind of what Dustin Jacoby is in that first round.
Which is crazy, because if you look at Jacoby, most of his wins are in the first round, but just lately in his UFC career, it hasn't been that way. But again, I like the pitter-patter. I love the leg kicks. And with Lord Michael, if Jacoby's able to get those leg kicks working early, and it's tough, again, against the southpaw, but you have a world-class striker. When I look at it for Jacoby, if you can beat up that lead leg, Michal Oleksiejczuk and Orthodox, I haven't really seen it. So for me, I like Jacoby that way. Lord Michael, I believe, has a better path to victory by finishing this fight.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's why my prediction is Dustin Jacoby. But I do see this much more as a 50-50 fight. Again, Jacoby likes to back up with his striking. You sound like Tyron Woodley with it. He doesn't just immediately put his back up against the cage. But it's something I do worry about, because with Oleksiejczuk, when you do give him that distance and start blitzing forward, that's when he is at his most dangerous. And sometimes they can look weird and stiff, his combinations. I kind of liken it almost to like when Benil Dariush knocked out Jakar Close, where he's sort of like stiffly moving forward, but then that knockout blow is a really, really nice shot. He'll throw combinations like that, and I could see a world where he's able to back Jacoby up, land a really nice combo, and then finish up top with a big left hook. But I think I will predict Dustin Jacoby to win this one. But I think this is a great fight at 205, and hopefully the winner is rewarded with a ranking next to their name next week.
Big time fight coming up this weekend. Both of us going with Colorado's own former Glory kickboxer Dustin Jacoby in a very close fight. So you let us know down below in the comment section who you have in this absolute banger. And keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, because as we always say, let's get into it.